Hi friend, Niklas here from Your Audio Solutions. Hope you're doing well. Today we have the guitarist from the heavy metal band Skindred, Mikey Demus. I actually met Mikey a few years ago and it was a pleasure talking to him again, and I hope you, the listener, will enjoy our conversation as well. In this interview with Mikey, we spoke about the beginning of Skindred and touring in the US, how Mikey likes to work and how he approaches the recording studio, and using a recording studio versus a home studio, the benefits and the disadvantages of having a record deal, the modern setup of running your band and the business side of running your band, what his band Skindred is looking for when they choose which recording studio to use for their albums, picking your battles and making compromises in a creative environment, why you have to put in the time to be able to make a living from music, and much, much more. So I hope you like this interview, but before we get into the interview with Mikey, I want to tell you about a free guide you can download right away. It's called 3 Tested Ways to Increase Your Client Base, and I made this guide for people who are home studio owners, or you work in a professional studio, or you want to get your foot in the door of the music industry. In this guide, you can learn my tested email script of how to contact bands online, how to find bands in real life, so to speak, or clients in real life, and how to make clients come back for more, and much more in this guide. It's free. Just download it below using the link below, enter your email address, and I'll send it to you right away. But now, over to Mikey. Well, yeah, first of all, Mikey, thank you for coming. Pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, man. I'm sorry it took so long.
It's all right. I'm glad we're doing it. Before we started our interview, I was listening to your new pedal, the Honey Badger. But
Okay.
it's about to come out, right? It hasn't come out yet.
We've literally just launched it for pre-order. So they're available to purchase on the website and through a couple of retailers we've got, through Anderton's in the UK.
Oh, yeah.
But they'll be shipping sort of beginning of March, mid-March.
Cool.
That kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, I put a link to it for people to check out.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
But because I love fuzz, but I don't have many fuzz pedals. I have one fuzz pedal, and that's the
What is it that you got?
that's the one everyone got, the Big Muff, obviously.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And
Yeah.
that's always a funny one because sometimes it's cool, sometimes it is what it is. You know, everyone has it, I guess. But I really like what you're doing with yours.
Thank you. It's cool. My problem with the Big Muff is that I've always found it super bassy, or it's difficult to kind of dial the bass out. And on the Honey Badger, it's actually got separate bass and treble control, so you can kind of, and it's really powerful EQ, so you can make it really bassy, you can make it super bright, or
Right.
somewhere in between, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And then
But the octave mode is the real thing about that pedal, where it does 1 octave down and 2 octaves down, and you
Right.
can blend between them on a pot, and you can foot switch the octave in and out. So it's kind of super
that's pretty bad.
subby.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. It works really well with guitar, works really well with bass, works really well with synth, surprisingly. So
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, it's a bit different. It's still really musical, but it can be really destructive as well.
Yeah. I mean, because your
Yeah.
sound, for your guitar playing is fuzzy, right? Like you use a lot of fuzz.
Yeah, mostly distorted kind of thing. I typically use like amp distortion up to this point, and then the first pedal we brought out, the Red Mist Mark IV, is kind of moderate to high gain amp like distortion. But it's kind of got like at the high end of the gain, it's got like kind of fuzzy, dirty overtones, because it's not like super scooped or saturated. It's not like, I know our band's kind of like heavy, but it's not like traditional metal by any stretch. So it's kind of, you want something that does high gain but has its own thing as well.
Exactly.
Like I'm a massive fan of like orange amps, and so when they get dirty, they tend to have like a gritty, fuzzy vibe to the top of them, which no other amp really does. So I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, my only proper amp I bought was an orange, actually.
Okay.
I forgot what it's called. It's like OD. Is it OD?
Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah.
AD HD. I don't know. What is it?
AD.
AD. It's not AD, I guess.
I think so. Yeah. I typically just use Rockaverbs for years, but
Oh yeah.
I get a bit lost with some of the names of the others. But I think they had like an OR50, which is like a custom shop hand wired thing, which was cool. But they're just super loud and super. They're killer amps. I just don't want to lift them up because they weigh a ton.
Yeah, exactly, man. I mean,
Yeah.
I bought it because I thought it had the best clean sound of
Oh,
the
okay,
amps I
cool.
tried.
Right.
Because I
Okay.
thought I
Okay.
wanted a Fender amp, and it was like, oh, it's kind of lame actually. Then I
Right.
got to
Okay.
the orange, it was much better, and then yeah, the distortion is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. They've just done an amp called the Tremlord as well, which is a combo, and that's like pretty clean, but it's got like a really cool tremolo in it as well. I guess it's their take on a kind of vintage Fender amp kind of thing. But I used one of them at NAMM. It was actually really cool.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you guys went over to NAMM this year, didn't you?
Yeah. I just got back like a couple of weeks ago. I managed to avoid. There's this thing that people get called like namthrax, which is like where everyone gets sick. You're shaking a lot of hands. You're around a lot of people
Right.
a lot of the time. But yeah, I managed to avoid that. I managed to avoid jet lag coming back as well, which was a result
That's
because
nice.
I was super jet lagged over there. I couldn't sleep while I was over there. But when I got back, it was absolutely fine. But no,
Yeah.
it was great. Met tons of new dealers and distributors and things like that. Just for the Redbeard Effects thing, it was just really, really worthwhile experience. And I know a ton of guys in the sort of gear industry already, but it was just it's kind of like a school reunion, but meeting loads of people as well.
Yeah.
But I was so busy, I didn't even get a chance to go and look at like the Fender stuff or the Gibson stuff, or
Oh yeah.
because that's all like upstairs, and it's like like a theme park almost. I didn't
Right.
get a chance to go up there. I was there for like 4 days, and I was just on the shop floor, hustling.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
hustling.
That's nice, man.
That was
Um,
great. I loved it. It was brilliant.
I mean,
And we had
is it,
loads of people
sorry.
come and visit us, like friends and bunch of musicians. Like Scott Holiday from Rival Sons came over. Phil Demmel, who was a machine head, he came over. Adrian Ballou came over and was like blowing up about what we're doing.
Nice.
Graham Coxon from obviously from Blur.
Mm-hmm.
He's I've got a bunch of people who are kind of
Nice.
really into what we're doing, and all kinds of other people as well. But yeah, lots of pro guitar guys going like, "This is awesome."
Nice,
So
man.
I feel like I'm doing something right.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, it sounds killer, so it's nice to get the
Thanks, man.
endorsement, for the
Yeah,
brand.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Um, so obviously, I'd love to talk to you about Skindred because that's
Yep,
what you're most known for at the moment.
yep.
Maybe Redbeard Effects takes over one day.
Hey,
Hopefully
maybe
not.
it would be a good problem to have, I guess.
But yeah, yeah, yeah. No, so I'd love to know about Skindred and your history.
Uh-huh.
Is some of your early struggles trying to get Skindred off the ground, and how do you guys made a living doing music like you're doing today?
So yeah, it's been a sort of slow and constant journey, really. It wasn't like one thing happened and all of a sudden we were able to make a lot of money. Or when we started out, we've always been quite lucky that we were able to get like a record deal, or there's always been interest, mainly because of the history like that Benji had in Dub War, and just the fact that the first stuff we wrote was kind of, it seemed to really hit a chord with people. So we've never really struggled in that sense. Like I guess someone out there always thinks we were okay. So it's kind of, we always managed to get a record label, or always had management, always had that kind of thing, always had an agent. That's never really been a struggle for us. And to some extent, we've always been lucky enough that we've played in front of people, at least in the UK, and then we've sort of grown that in other territories as well. But yeah, the first, starting off, it was very much a case of, we didn't have any crew working for us really. We didn't have anything like that. It was 4 guys in the back of a van, and it was actually Aria, our drummer, had this old blue Volkswagen transporter van, tiny little thing, and we used to call it Turbo Wolf. We named it after I can't remember if we called it after the band or the band called them after. I think it must have been we named it after Turbo Wolf, the band, eventually.
Right.
But yeah, me and Benji used to sit in the back and amongst all the gear, and then Ari and Dan would be up front, and then we'd have a guy driving typically, just because there'd be long drives and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, we went all over all over the UK and Europe in that thing for years and years and years. But we also had we had the US management from the get-go pretty much, who took the band on, and the band was signed to MCA Records in the US,
Right.
which then later turned into so the first record came out on, I want to say, BMG in the UK, and then the band got dropped straight away.
Wow.
Yeah, this was like back in what, 2001, 2002.
But you guys got started in
And then,
97, 98, or was it earlier
well,
maybe?
I guess Dan and Benji met each other around then, and they
Right.
were writing songs together then. I probably joined the band in about 2001, I want to say.
Right.
So I've been doing it long enough.
Yeah.
But we started off going to the US pretty much straight away. And we were in the US for like 6 to 9 months a year, just touring. And
How
it
did you
was
form
kind of
those connections back then when it just started out? Was that through the other guys' connections, or how did you?
I think it was a case that there was a chap called Jason Beeler who had heard of us on a sort of sampler CD. I want to say like a demo had got into his hands somehow through some connection. Can't even remember quite how, but he was an instant fan of the band and was just really determined to sign the band, and that happened. And a connection he had was Jason Flom, who was head of Lava, which was a subsidiary of Atlantic,
Right.
I think, at the time. And so we got signed up to Lava, and we were over in the States, and there was a huge campaign for us over there, and that was a real big push. And we were there for probably about 2 or 3 years, working stuff really hard. And we were really lucky that we got support tour after support tour. Really, we were out with all kinds of massive bands over there, and just on the road for probably about 3 years straight, I would say, in the US, at least 3 or 4 years, just constantly grinding over there.
Right.
And that would either be in the back of a van, mostly in the back of a van, or we'd occasionally get on a bus, which would be great, or we'd do bus shares and things like that.
How was that experience?
Oh, amazing. I mean, I was like 20 years old, touring the USA on a tour bus. I mean,
Yeah, that's a dream, I guess.
yeah, it was wild. I was like, how have I pulled this off? How have I managed to do this? If I thought that playing the guitar would end up turning into this, I would never have believed it, really. But
Right.
yeah, we did a big support tour with Korn over there, with Seven Dust. We did the Warped Tour. We did we did Gogo Bordello. We did all kinds of different bands over there, and we did a lot of like these radio shows, which is kind of at the time was kind of the US equivalent of like a festival
Right.
in the UK or in Europe, and they're kind of more adopting that kind of thing now over there with certain. They're calling them festivals and that kind of thing. But we had a lot of radio support over there, and so you do these all-dayers for radio stations, and there'd be like huge radio bands at the top, and we'd be sort of halfway on in the day, and we got a lot of exposure that way, really.
Right.
But and we'd be coming back to the UK, and kind of it's weird. We'd be over in the US doing these huge things, like in the back on the bus and that kind of thing, and then we come back to the UK and be in our little van going up and down the UK and doing little shows, things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a big push for us in the States in the early 2000s, and we were quite fortunate with that.
And that was the guy who was pushing that, the guy who signed you guys?
Yeah, pretty much. And I think there was a lot of money spent back then. That was when we were on a major label where there was a lot of money getting spent.
Right.
And that was a fun time, doing videos with budget and stuff like that. Like I think we did one video where they didn't tell us like how much it cost, but when you do a video, you get like you receive all these treatments that you have to read, and you pick the treatment you want to do for the video. And we picked one, and it was like, okay, we did that, and then it transpired like 6 months later. It was like, this video actually cost like $250,000 to make, and it was like, what? We'd never have picked it. We probably wouldn't have picked it if we knew it would cost so much, because then it's just kind of added to your debt at the label. How
does all that work? Because I mean, a lot of stuff has changed in the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, like these days, well, first of all, you don't need as big of a budget, I guess, to do a video. Maybe you do.
I guess I think the it was a cusp in technology where a change in technology where something that could cost a bit more money back then would probably be a lot easier to do digitally now. And yeah, just I think it was just the days of major label putting a budget on something and a production company going, "Yep, this is what it's going to cost," and just people going money. It costs what it costs, kind of thing. It's very different now, you know.
Yeah.
But and you know, we're lucky that we were kind of achieved some popularity of that sort of at the beginning of right in the middle of that kind of digital revolution where you know bands were starting to streaming was becoming a thing and people were buying less music. But you know, we sold a lot of records in the States. Well, we sold a lot of records globally initially. I think we sold something like 300,000 copies of the first record.
Wow.
Something like that. It was big numbers. And, you know, that's when a lot more people were buying CDs and so on.
Yeah.
But, you know, the way people listen to music has just changed. And we just had to kind of adapt to that. But yeah.
How have you guys adapted to that change, by the way? Because, yeah, as I said, you were coming up when you were still making money from CDs, but then you're also shifting almost immediately.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we never actually saw any money for the sales of CDs, but it was more like recouping costs against, you know, the label and the deal that we'd signed. But yeah, I don't think I've ever really made any money from record sales in 20 years. So it's not really changed. It's just the way people digest music. Right. And I never really had a problem with digital downloads or streaming or anything like that. I think it's just, I don't know. I've never really wrapped my head around making money out of physical music. So for me, it's always been about the touring and merch and that kind of thing. And that's seemingly the only way I know I've ever really made money from music. But there's so many people in between, you know, releasing music and the artist. There's so many things in between. There's like by the time it gets to you, it's gone, man.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Yeah, it sucks. I mean, yeah, if I'd have been a popular artist or band or whatever in the 90s, early 90s, yeah, I'd probably been killing it.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean,
no.
even then, the record deals, I mean, always record deals have been a rip-off for the artist anyway, right?
Yeah, typically, yeah. I mean, we're quite lucky now that we own some of our own music. We own a bunch of our back catalogue.
That's great.
And so there are re-releases we want to do where if we sell those re-releases, we might actually make some money ourselves from that. So but that's something we'll work on. But you know, it's mainly the touring side of things for us. You know.
Yeah, exactly. That's cool, man. Well, yeah, it's just fascinating, the whole record deal thing, because I know some bands, well, these days who really want it, but
right.
I mean, I'm not in a band I don't pursue that anymore, but I used to.
Right.
And I never thought I wanted a record deal because it seemed so hard.
I guess. I mean, it's like I still believe in that kind of major label thing. It's just, I guess it's tough for rock bands because, you know, at the end of the day, it's kind of like a bank loan. You know, exactly. It's just a specialized bank loan that you have to pay back through some means. Yeah. And you know, if you've got the opportunity to sign a major deal, then you should probably take it, as long as they don't, you know, just shelve you and just for whatever reason that is. The problem is I think it wasn't even really about how people were digesting music back then. I think it's just, I don't know. It was a lot to do with that probably. It was a change in tide of a lot of people losing their jobs, getting new jobs at other labels, and the shift up of the structure of hierarchy at labels. And so when someone who's championing your music unexpectedly moves over to somewhere else, it then lands in someone else's lap, and you pretty much end up as like a name on a list of you know, assets and liabilities. And so, you know, these people have made this much, these people have lost this much, blah, 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 and you pretty much just get cut if you're in the red. You know, that's like someone comes in and they want a clean slate, and they go, right, what's working, what isn't. And you know, it's any new business you start, you got to expect to sort of be in the red for the first 18 months to 3 years. But obviously, you know, you sign a deal, 6 to 9 months later, the person who sort of signed you has moved on, and then someone else comes in, and on paper it's not working, so you get dropped. And that's happened to us a few times just because of the shift up in hierarchy. And it's not even necessarily about, it's frustrating because you just want the opportunity to have been worked as an artist under the terms of the deal that you might have signed, but it doesn't always pan out like that. But it does pan out for some people, and that's great. But people like to see quick returns on things, and sometimes that doesn't really work in any kind of business, as I'm learning with pedal stuff,
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
What you're telling me now, I've actually heard other people telling me the same story on other interviews I've done, like exactly what you're saying, the hierarchy changes, and, it's kind of crazy that you can just work like that.
Yeah, it's weird. And I mean, you can kind of choose to be kind of annoyed about that. I just kind of roll with it, to be honest. It's like, It's all seemed quite cliche and all kind of like, yeah, that's just the way it goes. I don't know. I've always managed to kind of get by one way or another by playing, and we've always had each other, and we just keep going and just figure out the next thing. We've been handed so much misfortune in that sense. It's kind of got used to it quite quickly, really. I was young enough to bounce back from it, and we're at a stage now where we kind of write our own ticket on a lot of things, and that works for us. We're in charge of like a lot of all our output and the way we do things live, and we own all our own merch, we own some of our music, so we're in a fairly good position in some ways. The new stuff we put out is obviously that still comes out for a label, and we do it that way, but it's not changed at all really for me in terms of I've never really made money from selling records, so it's not something I miss.
Yeah.
It's just if anything, like our fees and for playing live have increased over time, so that's a good thing, and we tend to sell we're selling more merch than probably we ever have, so
that's awesome.
So and that takes time. That's just something that's taken nearly 20 years to kind of get to this stage, so I'm a lifer. Woo.
Yeah. But it seems like what you guys are doing, how you operate the band is the modern way of doing it in a lot of ways, right? Where you are in charge of what's going in and what's going out.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be. You have to be as involved as you can be across all platforms, and know what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are as an individual and as part of a team, and just get stuck in with the stuff you have an understanding of, and then just maybe try to stay back from the bits you're like, this is this other guy's problem, I'm going to let him deal with that. That's my stance anyway. Not everyone feels the same, but some people try to be across everything, and I think that's kind of difficult.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's better to delegate if possible, I guess.
Yeah, as much as possible. I mean, we have a team. We do have a team working around us, but then we're all involved in various different aspects of it as a business, as that kind of thing.
Let's talk a bit about when you guys are looking to record an album, like your last album. What are you guys looking for when renting or not renting? Well, renting and deciding which studio to use. Is there anything you're looking for in particular when you do that?
I mean, obviously, I think we've all got like our bucket list places. There's bucket list places you want to play. There's people you'd love to work with, places you'd want to go to record. We've been quite lucky that we've been to some really world-class places, really. And again, it's down to your reach, like the people who's in your Rolodex or who's in your speed dial. And a lot of the time it's a producer that you're working with, the places they may have like I really want to do it here because of X, Y, Z. Other than in the early days for us where we were doing a lot of stuff in the US because our management team actually owned a studio, and we did a lot of stuff there, and it was full of, world-class gear, had an amazing desk, and had all the outboard, all the stuff you want, really. So we did a lot of stuff there early on. But then since then, coming back to the UK, we've never recorded in the same place twice. So it's always been different every time. And I do like that idea of, the studio being an instrument and the studio being part of the character of the thing that you did. We did we worked at Brit Row in London when that was still there. It's a shame that's not there anymore. We went to a place called Chairworks, which was up near Leeds. Where did we go? We went to Strong Room in in Shoreditch, which was
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, Real World very recently, which was again a really great place.
That's what we did the last
And
album, right?
yeah, and we did the vocals at Rockfield actually in South Wales as well, where
Right,
they
right.
did Bohemian Rhapsody, and Oasis did their record there, and
Right.
so we've been really lucky to go to some really really cool studios. I don't think we have any kind of proviso about the gear, or I don't know. I guess it's like you kind of assume that the place has got what you need. It's typically the producer's always got a good idea of where they might want to do it, and it depends what kind of where we're at in our lives. Like if we want to go there residentially, or whether you want a bit of space from one another.
Yeah.
Like when we went to Strong Room, and we were all situated close by. Like we got some we were doing like these Airbnb style things close by, but it meant we all got to go back to our own places at the end of the day and kind of get a bit of decompression.
Of course, yeah.
But and then we've done some residential stuff like Real World where we were all living there, and that kind of has its ups and downs. Like I love Real World. It was amazing. Like the food was awesome. They take really good care of you. It's like really really world class. But at the same time, you're living with each other, and it's kind of can either add to the pressure or the stress. End up falling out about stuff.
Right. I mean, I did my first residential recording the other week in Manchester.
Okay.
And I really, really, really liked it. But
Where
I
was
didn't. I was hired as an engineer, so I was the only one staying there. Actually, the band just stayed at one of the bandmates' houses.
Okay. Which studio was it? Would I know it?
Eve Studios.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Cool,
Manchester,
cool.
just outside of Manchester. But I really like the idea of just being there and just doing one thing rather than going home, commuting home, and everything else that involves real life. I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. No, there's something about a residential thing, especially somewhere like Real World or Rockfield, where going out and doing something else involves planning and thought versus just being able to, walk out the door, turn right, and you've got civilization.
Yeah.
But it has its ups and downs. I don't know that I could do. I think we are able to do sort of residential for short bursts of time because everyone's got their own lives and things going on. But
Exactly.
I like being able. I like it depending on how prepared you are for the session and for the process. Being in that sort of bubble for 10 days, 2 weeks can be really good, and just you're in it and nothing else exists or is happening, and then you're there doing it like 24 hours a day. And also people like working at different times of the day. Like I've always preferred working at night.
Yeah.
Some people like working like 8 o'clock in the morning and being bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I'm no good in the morning. I'm like, I'm awful in the mornings. I'm terrible. I don't know. And so depending on the place, it's kind of, I think the Real World were like, you have to be done by 10 p.m. And it was kind of like, what?
Oh, it was a set rule?
I think so, yeah. And I think we broke that rule like almost every night because it'd be like, we'd be tracking at like 11:30, like midnight at least, Yeah. I don't know. I've one of those people that like when the sun goes down, I kind of come alive a little bit.
I think that's a lot of musicians are like that,
I seem to be like the only one in my band.
Oh,
Everyone
yeah.
else is like, right, 6 o'clock, bye. I'm like, where are you guys going? I don't know. I'm like the only one who's like comes alive at night. I don't know.
But this is something I ask a lot of engineers who's on the podcast. I ask them what they do if a band is struggling with getting the take done,
Right.
And it's really interesting to hear it from the band side. So what are if you feel like you guys as a band are struggling for the take or song to happen, what do you like to do to, get around that problem, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things. I mean, Aria, for example, our drummer, he improves with every take. Like his playing tends to improve over the course of a day. Like, whereas the first few takes would be like make loads of mistakes or something, or he'll make enough mistakes where it's like the takes aren't usable or whatever. But throughout the course of the day, it's just it improves and improves and improves and improves. Where I seem to be the opposite, where I start off all good and then it gets worse and worse and worse and worse because I'm like, we get frustrated, and I start going, I suck. But
Yeah.
yeah, so it's different. Everybody's different. Like our bass player Dan is really solid, and he always, he's always been really solid player.
Those bass
And
players.
again, yeah, and again, Benji, our singer, it's kind of he's quite lucky that his voice doesn't tend to get too worn out. But I mean, it depends if it's a party night or whatever. The next day tracking's usually a mess.
Yeah.
If there's any of that going on, like you can tell he had a night of it, when he's singing the next day. But he's typically quite lucky with his voice. His voice has never really let him down. But things just like, I don't know. Obviously, everyone gets frustrated and feels the pressure to get stuff done properly. But I like to take lots of breaks. Like we always joke about it, it's like ear break. Like we got that from Andy Taylor. Ari had played drums on Andy Taylor record, the one he's just done for like the power station stuff, and that they did that in Ibiza, and every 15-20 minutes there'd be like ear break, which would involve like going outside and having a cigarette basically. But yeah, and you forget that when you're in it. You're kind of you can be sat there for like 3 hours could have gone by, and you're like you're tracking or you're like thinking and your head's just gone, and then you're like, oh, I've been sat here for 3-4 hours doing listening to the same song over and over again, and it's difficult to remember just to take breaks, just like even 5 minutes of just rest your ears, rest your mind, have a cigarette, whatever it is you do. It's just, I don't know, I think that can be helpful. And it sounds so simple, it sounds so basic, but even that little retreat from just getting your head out of it for 5 minutes can be, like that thing you say, like you do all your best thinking in the shower, that kind of thing, or in the car, that can be when the moment hits you, when you're like away from it, you go running in going, I've got it.
Yeah, exactly.
I know what to do. I can see it.
But do you guys like to come to the studio with everything planned out, or do you still allow for stuff to change?
Yeah, it's a percentage, I think. Like, I would say that a good record for us is probably about 60%, 60-70% is fairly locked down. And then the other 30-40% is like total mystery. And it's just, you don't know what's going to happen. There'll be some tunes we do where it's like pretty much we write it, it stays as it is, and it's literally just a case of performance and just getting good takes, and it just comes together. But we do go in with some songs that are like open-ended, or we don't know how to end it, or like the middle eight is like not good enough, or it's like an arrangement thing, or you just, again, it's just something about the inspiration of the time. Is I typically, when we're writing, I feel like I get the most inspired when we're actually in the studio recording. Because you're at a desk where everything sounds great straight away, and even if you put on a tune for like reference of someone else, like here, let's listen to this song by so and so, and just try and soak up that vibe. Listening to a great big desk with great big monitors, it's powerful and it's inspiring. Versus being in a rehearsal space where it's like sometimes you can't even hear the kick drum.
Yeah.
We still do writing fairly old school. We've changed it up a bit now, and we're still refining it even after all this time. But some bands have like the system down where everyone's on like in ears or has like monitoring and that kind of thing, and it's like it's like the record in your ears the whole time. But we're still getting towards that. We're still pretty old school. We're still like 4 guys in a room smashing a drum kit and ragging amps and not being able to hear ourselves. And then a lot of the stuff that we do is because it's got this electronic vibe. It's sort of that stuff sort of happens in the box, maybe not live in a room sometimes. So it's kind of, you have to leave these sort of chunks in songs which are like, this is the bit where we're going to do that. Right. This is the bit where we'll do that, and we'll get to that. And knowing that's what it takes for that song is sometimes hard. Having that imagination, it's I find that that's why it's inspiring in the studio, because typically those gaps are filled and quicker, and it's like you can see the bigger picture quicker. You have an idea of how it's going to sound. You can even like monitor mixes of what you're doing there and then is like sounds a lot more like a record than it did in the rehearsal space per se. So it's it's not the same for every song. It's not the same for every album. Sometimes we know when we've got something we already love. Sometimes one person hates it. Sometimes half the band hates it, and then sometimes it all comes together in the studio. Sometimes it doesn't, and then the other person starts hating it because it's all changed. It's never the same, and it's not formula for us how it works. It's been different every record we made,
Right.
and so some people in the band love performing songs that they hated when we were writing it. And sometimes the opposite's true, where it's like they love this song in writing, and then we didn't, made the record, it was changed, and then they never liked it again. That kind of thing. We've got a lot of prima donnas in our band, including me.
Okay, yeah. But so, what is your thoughts about recording in a studio versus doing it at home these days? Do you think you can make a record at home, or do you feel like you need to go to the studio to get the same quality?
I think for us, we're still lucky where we can. There's a end goal where the means justify.
Right.
The need justifies the means of going to a studio and having the budget to do that. That we've been able to do stuff in a more DIY stuff at home. Obviously we write on our own. We write at home and do all that kind of thing. Some of us are quite proficient with, Pro Tools and that kind of thing, and plugins and all that good stuff. I mean, Dan and myself work quite well with that stuff.
Right.
But yeah, we've been lucky enough where we've recorded somewhere really proper every record. But for example, on the last album, I recorded all the backing vocals for the last record at home,
right?
Like on an Aston mic,
right?
I think the Aston Spirit into a Universal Audio Apollo Dual, into a MacBook,
exactly.
in my spare room, with no sound treatment, nothing. Just I had one of those. I've got one of those Aston Halo things, which is a killer bit of kit.
It's pretty dead, I guess.
Yeah, it's so good. It's really good. And their stuff's so affordable. I'm a massive fan of theirs. Oh, cool. But the Spirit's a great vocal mic.
Right.
Really good. Did all the load of backing vocals for that. I even took that setup to my sister's pub in Brighton.
Okay.
And before the pub opened one morning, she did a load of backing vocals for me in her pub on my laptop.
Cool.
So, yeah. And that was just on my MacBook Air, because you're only recording a couple of tracks. It held up to it, and I'd have bounces of stuff we'd done in the studio, and we're just building up backing vocals in the pub she worked in.
That's awesome, man.
And that's on the record. That made the record. And some of the coolest stuff you see on, albums that people love is that when they're out in the outhouse, just tracking in some weird little environment and just do it on one mic, and that's those little magic bits you can't really. I think that's what really makes a record sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
And like I said, the two places we did the last record, you got Real World, which is like Star Trek Next Generation, and then you've got Real World, which is like classic Star Trek. It's super old school, and everything's kind of beaten up. But we've been lucky. I mean, I like to think that every time we go to write, I get a little bit more proficient at what you can do on a computer at home. Obviously, we're most of us are big gear heads, so I've got loads of gear, and when I actually do get sat down to play and to create, it's when I do get my head into it, it's a lot of fun, and having that confidence to kind of write whole songs and flesh them out and as much as you can, and then present it as a demo is kind of cool. That's become quite a cool thing for me.
Exactly.
I guess I feel like if I was a bit better equipped up here, I could probably do some more passable things off of with not a lot of gear really. When you think about that Billie Eilish record, I mean, they're doing that in a bedroom.
Exactly.
I've got nothing. I think it's amazing. I would do that if I could. It's totally. I just don't know how to do it. Tell me how to do it.
I mean,
I do love going to the studio. It's really inspiring environment, and it's just something about outboard gear glowing and kicking out loads of heat and a big desk and great big monitor speakers and just the environment of it. It's just something about it. It's like that magic.
Yeah.
It just makes you think, makes you start feeling and thinking differently.
And for me, every time we go to a good studio, it's always about the room is always so much better. That's for me is what really sets a studio apart. Is that the tracking room, wherever you're doing drums, whatever, that's really top notch. And if that's good, you can get awesome results, you know.
That's it. I mean, I guess that's why a rock band typically would be required to go to a real studio, because you can't, you know, there are semi-convincing ways to do rock drums on a computer, but
it's not the same.
You know, it's not the same. No, and you know, we do demos where it's like we use Superior Drummer to like to flesh ideas out, because it's easier than getting a drum kit in a room and miking it up. But you know, when you're doing a record which is going to last the rest of time.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to know that you did it properly. You know? I've got nothing against it. It's just, I don't know, until they nail that sound and nail that feel, which you can't really you can't replace a human in a machine.
Exactly.
It's the feel of a drummer. Until they do that, then you have to do it that way. Have to.
Yeah, I agree, man. But what are some of the things when you go to the studio? What are some of the things the, let's say, assistant or in-house engineer can do to make you guys feel more comfortable in the studio? Like, what are the things, like, do you guys need a supply of drinks, or what is it that makes you guys, you know, tick? That's just a general rule of thumb for people, good for people to know.
I guess there's like a line, depending on where you are, there's a line of like being able to treat the place as if it were your own, but then not taking the piss, and like, you know, you want to be able to feel like you can make yourself at home, but also you don't want to feel like you can break stuff. And you know, I don't know, we're quite respectful people. We're not, you know, we reserve our hooliganism to when the time's right, and being in an expensive studio isn't always the right time to do it, but you know, but we tend to like try and keep the party into a minimum, at least towards the beginning of the recording process, because you've got to be on point. But people loosen up towards the end. But from an engineer's point of view, I mean, we used an engineer on our last record who was amazing, and he was something I noticed before that I'd never really noticed before, was that he just got stuck in and was doing things with gear without kind of going through the producer, so to speak. Like, we had a producer there, we had an engineer there, and Lee would just be like, he'd know what he'd want for a thing before having to run it through chain of command. He'd just be in there, like he was in the band almost, and that was quite cool. And that's quite a difficult one, because some people might feel like it was overstepping, but be like recording a drum part, and it's like, this needs something, and then he'd be, you know, he'd go and grab like a Space Echo and bust all the kit through like the preamp of it, and then bust it straight back out, and it was like, before you, it was like, oh, that's it, like boom, like just things like that, just making that thing happen without having to think about it, or without having to okay it with the producer. Just he was great, and I really loved that.
That's pretty cool, actually.
Because it kind of took a load of stuff off the producer's shoulders, where it's just, producer can be thinking about like bigger picture song stuff,
exactly, yeah,
or album stuff, rather than like engineering, technical kind of, you know, gear related, sonic related stuff. And just those, I thought those two worked together really well. And
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I guess it's just like with anyone working on side, it's just don't be a prick, really. I guess don't be a dick, just be cool, just be friendly, be like easygoing. You know, we're all pretty happy, easygoing people for the most part. You know, there'll be a couple of times for a recording session where we'll have a fight about something, and it's just normally like people will just go, gonna stay out of this one.
You know? I guess that happens. You know, it's normal.
Yeah, I mean, there's people. You know, it's people who really give a shit about what they're doing with things with little creative things they really give a shit about, and you know, personalities that have the tendency to rub against each other, really rubbing against each other in a high pressure scenario. Exactly. But you know, it's all love at the end of the day, and we all love each other at the end of it. It's just We have fights over songs. For me, that's the time I will fight with somebody, because it's like this last. I'm not going to have a fight with someone over like using the last teabag like on tour. Like it's like whatever, like okay, big deal. But yeah, I'll have a fight about a song, part of a song, which I'm like, no, you're wrong. You're all fucking wrong. It needs to be like this. Trust me, trust me, trust me.
But how do you
I'll
win
have
a fight like that? Or maybe win is the wrong word, but how do you
don't
like,
don't always win them. I don't often, to be honest, but I try.
yeah.
I don't know. I think you just have to pick your battles, really.
Yeah.
There are there are songs that everyone's got a different view, different opinion, but there are songs that, to me are more obvious that they're going to be a single, or they're more obvious what they do on the album. Like that's the opener, that's the last song. These two got single written all over them, and the rest are kind of like, let's make everything as good as it can be. Everyone wants the same goal. Everyone wants it to be great. Everyone wants it to be really successful, really critically acclaimed, blah blah blah. But it's everyone has a different way of going about it. So it's just, it's having trust in the people around you, know what they're doing, and it's trying to instill an idea of those people having trust in you and respect your input and opinions. That's just interpersonal relationship stuff. That's not even about music. That's just about human beings and working with people and being friends and being family and that kind of thing. But in terms of music, I don't know. I mean, I pick my battles and I'll fight really hard for something I really, really believe in, and the smaller stuff I'll just let go, because that's another thing as well, is, remembering if you're in a band, if you're in part of a team or something, and you all have sort of equality creatively, it's like, it's the ability to make compromises, because you can't have things go your way all the time.
Exactly.
That's just life. And, with a song or with a part, or, some stuff you just have to let go and go for the sake of keeping the wheels on the process. If I dug my heels in about a guitar part and hit a brick wall about it, and the album would never get finished or whatever. At some point you just got to compromise about some stuff. There's so many fights I've had with a producer or a bandmate over a part of a song or a guitar part or something that's like now not even relevant, or it doesn't even matter. It's so irrelevant because the part got cut or whatever. It's like I spent 3 days sulking about something that didn't even make the record. It happens all the time, and it's just like, you just have to remember that when in the moment where it's like, this feels like the most crucial decision of your life, and it's like, is this good? Is it? Is it? Nah, probably not.
Do you think the fights are more between a guitarist and a vocalist, or is it anyone? Because usually, because I'm a guitar player as well, I love to add more guitars. Are you the same?
Right. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like putting. I think just knowing when to stop is an important part.
Exactly.
We tend to double track some stuff,
but you guys are quite sparse with your guitar parts, like on the record.
Yeah, it's generally like, to be honest, I'll more have a fight about getting the right rhythm sound. And the last record, I had a massive fight about that. And like, it wasn't even the parts. The parts were what they were, the things I was physically playing. But it's more like the sound is not right. And like the more that got done, it was like, this is a problem. We're just going to have to go back and do it. And it was like, I was being like shut down on this the whole time. I was like, this album is going to be awful. The guitar sound is not right. And I'm fucking not happy about it. And then sure enough, like we plugged in this bit of gear, like to do a sort of part on something else down the line. That was like, it's plugging in Thermionic Culture Vulture.
Right.
And that was like, oh my God, this is the sound. And then we went back and did a load of stuff like with this thing turned on, and it was like, see, I told you, this is brilliant now. This is the best. And and it was like, they were like, and someone else was taking credit for it. I was like, no, I told you this is what I needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to that more so than like the part. Sometimes it's, I'm not like a massively technical player. I like melody. I don't try and put more in, like more notes, more speed, blah blah blah. I like the stuff I'm happiest playing is like the stuff that's really minimal and laid back, and like it's just, does it groove? Is the riff cool? That kind of thing. More than anything, and rather than, I'm not a huge solo person. I think if the song calls for it, I'll do it. I'll down, and again, it won't be some just like fest. It'll be like, a lot of the time I'll like start with like the vocal melody and like
Right, right.
play what the vocals are doing or something that complements what the vocals are doing and build it from there. But you know, I could probably in 20 years I've probably played 10 solos on a
Right.
record. You know, it's not really my thing, but I'll do it
Sure.
if it needs to be. Still got my chops.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, man. I
Yeah.
mean, what is or how would you categorize your guitar style? Because I was trying to think about it, and I mean, I was struggling to put it somewhere. You know, I don't know. Is it there's some bluesy stuff in there, I guess, but also the riffs are usually cool, kick ass. You know,
Oh, thanks, man.
but I don't know how
Yeah,
I can't really say. Oh, it's like that guy or that guy.
yeah. I don't know. I grew up. Well, really, I was a good fit for the band, really, because I'm a real mixed bag of nuts guitar wise. Like I grew up really into like Rolling Stones and Chuck Berry and Elvis Costello,
Right.
and you know, obviously I hit when I grew up listening to a lot of my dad's music when I was a kid, and when I was learning guitar, I sort of listened to a lot of Jimi Hendrix, a lot of like old stuff when I was coming up, and then I suppose when I was like 16, sort of when mid teens, it was the 90s, and so it had all this amazing guitar music come from the US, like things like Soundgarden and Smashing Pumpkins, Rage Against the Machine. I discovered like heavier music and more alternative music, and that's where I kind of like this is my thing really. So I was never like I never grew up listening to like really savage metal stuff or anything like that. I sort of came to that later in life. Like when I found Pantera, I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
But then I'm not like this huge. I don't have this huge back catalogue of like metal knowledge or being a metal fan. I'm really picky about metal and heavy music. Like I don't really listen to a lot of heavy music, to be honest. But it's more like melodic or alternative stuff or just weird stuff a lot of the time.
Right.
Yeah, but so I guess it was like I always loved Telecasters. Like Keith Richards was probably my favorite guitar player growing up.
Cool.
I just like something about an attitude about how someone hits a guitar, and more so than when I was starting to learn, I was practice for hours a day. But I wasn't sat down trying to learn anything really technical. It was just like trying to do something convincingly. Like I was always more into Steve Cropper than I was into Steve Vai. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that was more like I like songs at the end of the day, rather than guitar players a lot of the time. A lot, if a guitar player's got a swagger or attitude that I'm into, then that's great. But I don't know. It's sort of changed through the people who've really influenced me over the years. But I guess Jimi Hendrix first time saw Woodstock was a big like wow moment, and then
it makes sense what you're saying because you can hear that that it is more about the song when it comes to your playing, I guess.
Right. Yeah, and again, there's like loads of the only thing I can really sort of do showy offy stuff is sort of bluesier things, and so there's a lot of I grew up listening to the blues, and I think most guitar players have that at some point in their life.
Yeah.
And and then it's what you do with it and where you take it, and so yeah. I mean, I discovered Nirvana, and I was like, oh my god, it changed my life. It's like this is it.
Yeah.
And so I learned to play bar chords, like watching Kurt Cobain's hands, like because he was left-handed too.
Yeah, exactly.
And that kind of, I guess it's just that approach to guitar playing, and it made that kind of thing made it okay to sort of suck a little bit, and not be like, I was never really drawn to things like Iron Maiden or that kind of thing, where it's like, these huge, really able guitar solos. I mean, I respect that, and that has its place, but my thing was always more like, I don't know, like Link Ray, playing with the tremolo on the amp. That was like, I don't know, that was more mind blowing for me.
Yeah, exactly, man.
That kind of thing. Jimmy Page, that stuff, like that kind of thing, was just random bluesiness.
Yeah, that's the funny thing with Jimmy Page. Like, he was really sloppy player. When you do his solos.
Yeah. Yeah, gotcha. Oh my god, it's so sloppy.
It's kind of funny,
but it's kind of got a vibe to it that
Yeah, exactly.
We live in a sort of quantized world now where everything's perfect, and it's cool, but I think I'd really struggle to lay something down that wasn't perfect, or like
yeah.
perfect. I wouldn't. No, it's not good enough. I can do better, and like back then it was like, no, we're moving on. We've run out of tape.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah, there's something to being restricted and,
Yeah.
yeah, using
Yeah,
gear
no,
that allows you
yeah,
not to be perfect.
yeah, I really like that idea, like the whole Jack White ethos of
Yeah,
just,
exactly. Yeah.
I'm going to put my piano a foot further away from me, so I have to run out, have to stretch that bit further,
Yeah.
less stuff, and yeah, no, I went into this. I had this period where I owned loads of guitar gear,
Right.
and it wasn't making me any more creative at all. It was just more. I had more paralysis of just all these options, and just got rid of a lot of stuff and whittled it down to things I will never part with. And I found that actually really helpful because, for me now creatively, it's like I do most of my writing with an iPhone, where it's like I'll have an idea for something when I'm driving or when I'm in the car or when I'm nowhere near an instrument or a computer. And a lot of 90% of the stuff of my contribution to anything I do is hummed down a phone.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
and then I come back to it 3 months later and make sense of what I was doing, and then try and make a song out of it. Like program some drums around it, program what I need to, and then play a guitar on it, write some lyrics, sing some stuff on top, and do it from there. And that's how a bunch of our songs have come to be, just from that. So yeah, it's amazing. I'm a big fan of using a phone to record.
Yeah, likewise, man. It's perfect. It works well.
Yeah, I use that Music Memos app, which is
Yeah,
Apple.
exactly.
Yeah, it's really handy.
Awesome, man. Well, I know we only have an hour here, so I'm gonna actually ask. I have maybe 2 questions left.
Yeah, no problem.
So, I know you guys, obviously you struggle starting out, getting the band going, all that sort of things. So, what would your advice be to an artist who finds themselves in that position, who, feel like they're grinding it out, but not much might be happening? Do you have any advice for these people?
It's tough advice, but I mean, I guess it's like, what are your options? It's like, stick it out, because tenacity is probably about the most important quality a musician can have, because you're going to be handed all kinds of adversity and problems and things which would separate the men from the boys, so to speak, for want of another expression.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I would say that you have to be really, really honest with yourself. Are you any good? And if the problems you're having, it's because you're just not very good. And a lot of the time, when people are starting out, the people around them are, potentially the ones telling them they're great. Just because my mum might think something's great doesn't mean that it is great. Just because my girlfriend or my best friend or my family or my brothers and sisters or whatever think it's really amazing doesn't mean that it is. And having that kind of ability to self-critique and be really honest about it is really difficult. But that's ultimately the difference between something working and something not, because people want to hear great music. It's just, have people got the tenacity to stick it out, and are they honest with themselves of whether it's any good or not? And I guess that's the thing that's going to separate it. Yeah, it's difficult. And I mean, like you said, I slept on couches for 2 or 3 years at the beginning of the band. Didn't have any money. I just worked in a bar when I could. Did odd jobs, did things that I could to make money. Drove a van, do all that stuff. And people do that. But I think just having expectations that music's going to pay your bills really quickly, unless you're really, really, really something special and like something the world's never heard before, then you just have to work it and keep working it, because just like a business, just like any project, it takes time. Exactly. It's very, very rarely does something just all happen overnight. You got to be willing to put in maybe 3 to 5 years of hustle, I think, to see if something's going to happen. And then that's when the real work starts, because trust me when I tell you that making a living now is as hard to sustain as just trying to come up with it initially.
That's very
because it's because it's about staying relevant to yourselves and your audience, trying to bring in new fans. it's really difficult. You know, how do you keep all your existing fan base really happy and engaged, but also appeal to people who've potentially written you off for 20 years?
Yeah.
You know, it's and walking that line is
How do you think about that? Because that's super interesting, actually. Do you have a? Is that something you sit down and think about? You know, how to
I,
do it, or
I think when once songs start coming out, you think about it in terms of artwork. You think about it in terms of what your live show is going to do and what songs you're going to play. Don't really sit down and think about it when writing, because, as I say, most of my ideas personally come from man anywhere, and it's what you do with it. But you know, you make choices about, should I make this guitar sound super clean, or should I make it sound super distorted? Should I detune the guitar even more and make it really heavy and low? Should for the drum part on this, should it be like some jungle like drum and bass thing, or should it be some huge slamming rock part, or should it be like, I guess you kind of cater certain choices to like what your sound would you know, what the sound's known for, what your fans would expect, what they want.
right?
But yeah, then also, yeah, there's a total want to kind of to reach out to as many people as possible, to be as successful as possible, because that, you know, that is the name of the game, is, you know, putting bums on seats.
Yeah, exactly,
And
man.
you know, so yeah, there's a sort of semi-conscious part there, I think, thinking about that stuff. But I never feel dictated to by that, because
Right.
first and foremost, you want to feel like what you're doing is true to yourselves. And I guess if you're the best judge of, is it any good? Like, you know, I don't know. If you like it, then good, then great. And if the band like it, then great. And then if, you know, the team around you like it, then awesome. Then this could be good. And you see, it's really hard to do that for every song. Like, you know, again, like in the context of a whole record, it could be, you know, you've got like 10 or 12 chances to win people over or piss people off for the rest of their lives, you know, and you have to pick your battles. You know, it's okay you know, that's why we're like, it's okay to have like a couple of acoustic songs on a record, or like super moody thing. It doesn't have to all be like one way. You know, you could have like 2.5 minute really fast punk rock song, and then the next song it's like this dubstep thing. Yeah, I don't know. It's, you know, we sort of make up our own rules with that as much as we can.
Yeah, that's
And
pretty interesting,
yeah,
though. Um,
yeah,
no,
it comes back to that, you can't keep everyone happy all the time.
yeah,
You
exactly,
know,
man.
and it's, you know, you read reviews of records or even of live shows and stuff. It's like there's always somebody going to be going, oh, they didn't play this, or oh, I liked them when they did that. And you
But
know,
do
rock
reviews
fans.
matter these days? Do you think?
Um, I don't know. I tend not to really focus on that stuff. It's
Right.
just I try to sort of focus on the positives of what we're doing. And there's always, I guess what I'm saying is just, it's important to accept that there's always going to be people who like wanting to knock what you do.
Right.
And even if they call themselves a fan, sometimes that happens, you know, but more often than not, you know, people are really supportive. And I like trying to engage with those people who are like, love what you do, give me more of this, like that, you know, and trying to, it's not that we cater what we do to those people, but just, I don't know, you want to keep your audience happy, you know.
Yeah, of course.
It's a really tough one, and it's difficult with every record, and it always changes, and it's never the same thing.
But are you guys in close touch with the fan base as well to gauge
I
their
mean,
interests, so to speak?
yeah, we kind of interact as much as possible on like Facebook and Instagram and things like that. But
Right.
you know, there's doing it for a sort of band at a band level, and I try to keep my personal stuff,
Right.
you know, as separate from that as possible, which is difficult because, especially when you're like running another business, you want to have some interaction, you want to glean as much interest from that fan base that you've created as possible.
Right.
But
Yeah.
you know, it's there's a line where it's like I'm happy to, I love meeting people and interacting with people. But there's also a line when you want to have some anonymity and be able to just have some sort of some form of private life. And so that's another line that we all walk from time to time. I've not made it easy for myself though. Walk around looking like this. It's like
You're recognizable, I guess.
yeah, I guess so.
Awesome, man. Well, before we wrap up, where can people find more about you and your pedals, for example, and the band? Is there anything up and coming?
Okay, so yeah, with Skindred, it's skindred.net, but we're obviously on Facebook and Instagram. We're writing at the moment.
Cool.
We're ramping up to do some stuff. In March and April, we're doing a few bits and pieces here and there.
Cool.
And then over the summer, we'll be in Europe doing a lot of festivals. We're doing a couple of UK ones, which should be cool.
Nice.
Yeah, it should be a
Is that
busy summer.
Glastonbury or Reading or something?
No, we're not doing any. No, we're doing. I think I can say we're doing. Bloodstock Festival in the UK, which is like really heavy. We're like, that's like a real metal festival. And we're like super light by comparison. So we sound like ABBA at a festival. And then like it was people like drinking blood and stuff like that. It's
wow.
crazy.
What's it called? Say it again.
Bloodstock.
Right, I never heard about it.
It's super heavy. Yeah, it's up in the Midlands. It's kind of it's like sort of up north-ish, and it's kind of heavy. It's like an independent festival. It's like kind of like the smaller scale version of Download, that kind of thing. Right. But it's like super heavy, and we're also doing Beautiful Days Festival, which is down in Devon.
Cool.
That'd be really cool. I think we're doing a festival called Teddy Rocks as well in the UK. We're doing a couple of small UK festivals this summer. We're doing a load of stuff out in Europe. Right. But we did Download last year, which means we won't be doing it this year. Okay. But yeah, but we're in Europe a hell of a lot this summer.
Nice.
It's skindred.net.
And the pedal?
Yeah, Skindred's on Facebook. Skindred's on Instagram. I think it's Skindred Music on Instagram. I think. But
I'll link to it below so I find it and make sure it's the right link.
Yeah. So redbeardeffects.com. It's obviously at Redbeard Effects on Instagram and Redbeard Effects on Facebook. Easy to find, but
it's we're also out in March or April. What is it?
Well, we've already got our first pedal's been on the market since September.
Sure, yeah.
And that's the Red Mist, and that's sort of like the high gain drive pedal. Yeah. And then the Honey Badger's out for pre-order now. Comes out next month.
Cool, man. Well, awesome to have you here, man. I'm glad we made it in the end.
Thank you very much. I'll send you a link to our YouTube channel as well, because to the Redbeard one, because that's got loads of pedal noises as well. It's a quick way to see things on it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for coming, man.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your patience with getting me on here. I know it took a minute.
Thank you, Mikey, for coming on. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I hope you, the listener, enjoyed it as well. If you're listening to this interview on Apple Podcasts, please leave a rating and a comment. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, also leave a like and a comment below. Let me know what you think. And before you leave, check out Mikey's YouTube channel, the Redbeard Effects stuff, Skindred, and their tours and stuff. And also, don't forget to download a free guide, 3 tested ways to increase your client base. Link to that below as well. But that's it for this week, and I'll see you guys soon.